Looking back at the data from yesterday, I would say a majority of us, probably over 90% of us, have an extremely strong grasp of layers of the atmosphere and a very strong grasp of the different weather instruments. However, there is about 10% of us that have not been doing our part of participating, working on our own, studying, and learning these vocabulary words, and you're starting to fall further and further behind because all of these concepts build on each other. And this kind of goes all the way back to like heat exchange and solid liquid gas. And we're just falling further and further behind. And it's going to be very tough for us to catch up as we move through the rest of weather. If you happen to fall into that category, you have all the videos, you have all the Nearpods. If you need something, just email me and let me know so I can get you caught up. But we can't spend a lot of time on that in class because it's time to move on. Weather just keeps on trucking. So we're on clouds. And the reason why I need you to understand all the different types of clouds is because they are a good predictor of current weather situations and upcoming weather situations. So it's important for us to know all about these. And again, that's kind of what this slide is saying. You know, what will the weather be like today? What's the weather be like over the next few days? And sure, we can use things like the hygrometer, the barometer, the air temperature and things to predict the weather, but clouds are another tool that we can use to look at and analyze and predict what's going to happen in the upcoming days. There are three main types of clouds. We have Cumulus Clouds, Stratus Clouds, and Cirrus Clouds. And if you watch the video that's on here, and I highly recommend doing that. If you weren't here or in class yesterday, I would highly recommend watching the video that's, I think, in the next couple of slides about how clouds were named. It does give you a good idea of what's going on with the different types of clouds and why they have their names and the special features that they bring with them. Many of the clouds are named by the way they look. Many of the clouds are named by their function. Many of the clouds are named by where they form in the atmosphere, how high they are in the atmosphere. And you put all of those things together and it really can give you an idea of, do they have accompanying weather or are they predicting upcoming weather? So here's the video. I can't show that on mine, but I would recommend going and watching that. Great video, by the way. Cumulus Clouds. Cumulus Clouds are the first cloud that we're going to study, and they are extremely important. So we're going to end up taking some notes on those. Cumulus Clouds. In Latin, cumulus means heap. So I want you to kind of look at these clouds back here, and I want you to think of like your uncle, maybe your dad, maybe your mom, grandma, somebody, a cousin, maybe your brother or sister, I don't know, but it's Thanksgiving, and the sweet potato pie, or depending on where you're at, the pumpkin pie, one of the two is going around the table, and hopefully somewhere is a big giant thing of Cool Whip. And you might have that, you know, most people get like one little scoop, bloop, and it's ready to go. However, you got that one person who just continues to heap more and more Cool Whip on there, and it starts to mound up like this, and it looks like a big giant fluffy pile on top of their sweet potato pie, and that's what the heap means. And so when you see these clouds, think cotton balls. Think like a giant heap of something, because that's pretty much what they are big heaps. Now, you'll notice if you look in the background there, you'll notice there's a lot of blue sky in between all of those clouds, and you can pretty much picture yourself outside on one of these days. You walk outside, you look up, you see blue spaces in the sky, and you see these big puffy clouds, and generally when you have this type of day, it's going to be a really nice day. It's going to be a fair, sunny day, depending on the time of the year. I mean, if in the winter, it's not going to be hot. I mean, and in the summertime, it's not going to be cold. I mean, it depends on what season you're in, but it's going to be a really nice day. You go outside and you see this, as long as you're not in the dead of winter and it's freezing outside, it's going to be a beautiful day out. It's time to get outside, ride your bike, get on your scooter. For me, play a round of disc golf if I can, because it's just a beautiful day to be outside. And so it's important for us to understand the type of weather that accompanies cumulus cloud. So let's jot down some notes. Since you're not in class to see me writing these down, let's jot down some notes about cumulus clouds that are very important. Wow, give me a second. I'm going to pause the video here because my screen is not on apparently. Okay, I think we fixed the screen issue. I hope at least. That was really weird. Here we go. So cumulus clouds. That's typically like if I said, hey, draw some clouds in a picture, I mean that's what people are going to draw. You're typically drawing cumulus clouds, which is what we're looking for. Pretty sure that's like Latin. I think it's Latin for heat. Might be Greek. Pretty sure it's Latin though. Latin for heat. White and puffy. Think cotton balls is when you're thinking about a cumulus cloud. They look like cotton balls when they're up in the sky like that. There's clear sky between them, and that's important to understand because many of these clouds are going to be in the sky. They cover too much of the sky for any of the. You can actually see the blue sky. They cover the whole sky. And so cumulus clouds have those giant patches of blue in between them. Probably the most important is what the weather will be like. And on these days, it's going to be fair and sunny. Now, that's not to say that things might not change, because obviously in order to have those types of clouds in the sky, you happen to have some evaporation and then condensation going on. So as the day moves on, it could change. But for the next little bit, you're going to have a fair, sunny day. And if you're thinking about a fair and sunny day, and you're looking at the barometer at that time, and again, like I said, the barometer can change as well. But at the time, you're probably going to have a very high reading on the barometer to have a fair, sunny day, because that's literally what the barometer tells you when it's fair and sunny and clear. And again, the clear part, it's a little cloudy, but we're not talking like perfectly clear. So yeah, the weather could be going from fair and then eventually hitting change and then move to stormy, because on a summer day, it starts out like this, and as it continues to stay hot and more evaporation goes on, we'll move into a completely different type of cloud. Now we are looking at our second type of cloud, and our second of the three main types of clouds, I should say. This cloud is called a stratus cloud. Now, if you look at this picture, you're going to notice something very different. There's not a lot of blue sky showing around there. As a matter of fact, it looks like the whole sky is covered in a blanket. And if you're looking at the word strato, it could be translated as blanket. I think the more formal translation is like to spread out, but it means to spread out and cover. Stratus clouds cover the entire sky. Now, I know for me, and we're going to talk about this probably on the next one or two slides, I'm sure. There are a lot of times that you read about stratus clouds, and people will say that stratus clouds bring light rain and drizzle, and I'm going to argue that while that may be true, once rain starts falling from the stratus cloud, I personally changed the name of the stratus cloud to nimbostratus, because when we start adding the prefix or suffix nimbus, that has to do with rain. You have been outside on these days many times and no rain is falling. And so I think it's important to understand that these days, and I probably even need to go ahead and like change the definitions of this if we do this and cover that. And I'll probably do that here pretty soon, like today, before I formally teach this to the class. I'll change this. But and we'll get into the whole nimbostratus versus stratus. But these days are generally going to be cooler outside. Mr. Bullens, how can you say that? During the day, these stratus clouds, because they cover the whole sky, are going to block a lot of the sun's heat that's trying to reach the earth. Conversely, at nighttime when you have stratus clouds, they are acting again like a blanket, and they are insulating the earth, and all that heat that's trying to rise up is kind of trapped underneath that blanket of clouds, and at nighttime, it's generally a little bit warmer. So we'll have to cover that in our notes for certain. So as we look at our next slide here, I'm going to be changing some of this stuff at the bottom here pretty soon. But stratus clouds do spread out and they cover the sky. and they cover the whole sky. There's not a lot of blue. It's very different than those cumulus clouds. And this is not going to be one of those fair and sunny days. If it's during the day, it's going to typically be a little bit cooler. And that's because the stratus clouds are blocking the sun's rays from reaching the ground. If it's nighttime, they are keeping some of the heat in. And we will talk about that. So we're going to delete some of this stuff down here. I just can't do that. It's nimbostratus is the correct definition of those. And we'll get into that here in just a moment. So let's get into these stratus clouds. And you notice I'm going to try to change my color here to like this gray. I know it looks black, but it should be gray. Well, there we go. That's even better. Stratus clouds. Now, those typically are going to be a thin kind of layer or a little bit thicker layer that covers the whole sky. So if I'm coloring those, stratus clouds. Now, what do? Well, they spread out like a blanket. And here's the two things that we're going to talk about here. So I'm going to have daytime, and then I'm going to still do this over here, maybe with this pen. I'm sure somebody will call this a banana in my class. It is not. You know it's day and night. And we're going to go back and put our layer of clouds. And let me put some grass down here and some grass down here. Now, here's what's happening when this is going on. During the day, the sun's radiation is coming down and it's kind of reflected back up because this doesn't allow the heat of the sun to go through. These clouds, they absorb some and they reflect some. So on a summer day, well, not summer, on daytime, so Mr. Bullen, in the day, it's cooler with stratus clouds. It's a little different at night. Typically at night, the heat from the earth, because it's no longer being heated by the sun, starts to go up into the atmosphere on a clear evening. That's why some nights are super clear. But at nighttime, with stratus clouds, it's warmer. Why? Because the stratus clouds act like a blanket. They insulate the earth and keep it warmer in the evening. I think that's probably more important for us to talk about. And we'll get into the whole when stratus clouds bring rain and drizzle and stuff like that here pretty soon. But I think probably this is more important. I need to go back and add that in on the slides, and I will get that done today for sure. All right, that's stratus clouds. Let's get to our next one. Oh boy, looking at the clock, I don't have a lot of time to talk about cirrus clouds, but I just want you to take a look at the picture for just a minute. The word cirrus comes from the Latin word cirro, which means a tuft of hair. And I can see how this looks like curly little strands of hair. I think they look like a horse's tail personally, but that's your pick. These form very high in the atmosphere. They are very wispy. And you can see how these are curling. They are curling due to the wind that's blowing on them. You can tell the direction of the wind. The wind's coming from this direction, and they curl up this way. So the wind's blowing from the left to the right. They're about 8 miles, maybe a little lower, 4 to 8 miles high, roughly. Some of them, if not all of them, are made of ice crystals. They form so high in the atmosphere, like teeny tiny little ice crystals and dust particles. Because they are so thin, sunlight passes through them very easily. Now, although I see blue sky, this is very different than those cumulus clouds. With cirrus clouds, we get fair weather. As we wind down to the last few seconds here, cirrus clouds, again, they're thin and wispy. They're made of ice crystals, and they mean fair weather. Although typically when you see them, there is a change in weather coming soon. Don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe. See you soon.